On this episode of Mainely Histories and Mysteries, I'm going to tell you about a shooting that took place in 1884 at Fort Western in Augusta that resulted in the death of an Augusta policeman named Rufus Lishness. The man who shot him was named Harry S. Burns, and there's just a lot of lore around this whole incident, so I figured I'd make a video about it. Hope you can see Fort Western behind me right here. Okay. So much to tell you. The first is I'll tell you a little bit about Harry and Rufus, and then I'll tell you about the shooting itself, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what happened after the shooting. So basically, Harry Burns was born in Ireland. He wasn't from America. He was born in Ireland in 1819, and he came here in 1848. So he was about 29 years old when he came here. He was so excited about being a part of the American experience that he joined in the cause for the Civil War. And in the Civil War, one of the biggest things that he was involved in was the Battle of Spotsylvania, or the Battle of the Spotsylvania Courthouse. It was the third bloodiest battle in the Civil War, so it was basically a hellscape. It was like hell on earth, and he was injured there. He was 46 years old when he took part in this battle, so I believe he got shot, and his injury left him with lifelong pain. He was paralyzed on part of his body, and he was in pain for the rest of his life. I need to make sure that I make that clear, because it really is it's really kind of the centerpiece of the whole story. Is Harry Burns was in pain his entire life from that point on. Now, that battle took place in 1864. Okay, this murder took place in 1884. So, after he was injured, Harry was, of course, needing medical assistance for being paralyzed and in this enormous amount of pain. I think it was nerve pain or something. Nothing helped it go away. So he was always seeking some sort of remedy, and I think that's why he wound up here in Augusta, because Augusta had the National Veterans Home, I believe is what they called it back then, the National Veterans Home at Togus. In present times, we just call it Togus, or the VA hospital, okay? He wound up here. I don't think there were a lot of VA hospitals in the country during that time period, and Togus was established, so that's probably why he wound up here. He wound up in Togus from 1871 to 1879, and then he left Togus and came out into the community. But he was still considered an inmate, which is what they called patients at the VA hospital back then, or inmates. He was still considered an inmate even after he left Togus, which means that they were still supplying him with rations, like food rations, to make sure that he could survive out on his own, where he wasn't taking up a bed at Togus. And so where he landed was at Fort Western. Fort Western has a long history of, it's been here since 1754. I'm telling you all this so that you can understand how it is that he wound up in this building. Fort Western was built in 1754 and was kept in the same family until 1810. In 1810, the last original family owner, their last name was Howard. He died, and the family sold it out of the family because it was kind of, I believe it was dilapidated, and it was in the old part of Augusta at that point. When this building was built in 1754, the city was kind of, the settlers tried to build around the outskirts of the building, just as close to the building as they could get. But the more established the city became, of course, people wanted to get further away from the old part of the city. And so by 1884, when Harry Burns was living here, This was considered the old part of Augusta in a way like you wouldn't want to be associated with it. A lot of illicit activity happened in this area of the town. If there was a wrong side of the tracks, this was the heart of the wrong side of the tracks. It was a very not great place to be. And so the rent here was pretty inexpensive. It's probably why Harry Burns could afford to live here. Okay? So that's the whole backstory for Harry Burns. He's living out in the community in one of the cheapest places in town to be, the area of town where people expect bad things to happen. Okay? Rufus Lishness. That is a tongue twister. Rufus R. Lishness. So I'm probably not going to say that all together too many times during this video. But anyway, he was a cop. He was an Augusta police officer. He had just gotten the job back in spring of 1883. This murder took place in November of 1884, so he hadn't been on the job that long. Rufus was a 45-year-old father of 6, and he was a table smoother by trade. But he had become a cop, and he was very popular. Everybody knew him already, so it was kind of a good fit for him. Okay, here we go, the night of the murder. So what happened the night of the murder? Let me tell you what set the stage for the night of the murder. So Harry, as I said before, was always in pain, and he was always looking for someone to help him with that pain. But he was still an inmate of Togus, and so in order to leave the area away from Togus or away from Augusta, he had to get permission. Okay, so Harry was a drunk. He was an alcoholic. He was an alcoholic because he was in pain all the time, and he didn't have any medicine to help him dull the pain, so he would dull the pain with alcohol. He used to drink hard liquor up until about 2 years before the murder. Everybody knew that Harry Burns was he was a town drunk, but I think a lot of people also knew why he was a town drunk. Harry Burns was not a troublemaker. He was just a guy who was trying to kill his pain with alcohol. He did that with hard liquor up until 2 years before the murder, and then after that he just indulged with beer, and a beer that he made, which was completely legal at the time, just like it is now. He could make his own beer. So he frequented the shops nearby, the ones that sold the parts to make the beer, like molasses and hops and all that sort of thing. And he also smoked too, so like tobacco products and things like that. He would go over to the shops to, just buy this stuff to keep himself relatively comfortable. The day of the murder, November 10th, was a very trying day for him, and the reason why is because he had sought a furlough from Togus on Saturday. So the murder took place on Monday. The Saturday before, he had written a letter. More specifically, he had one of the shop owners in town write a letter for him, which he mailed to his physician at Togus, asking him for a furlough to go to Boston so that he could see a doctor down there. He also had relatives who lived in Lowell, and he wanted to stop in to see the relatives while he was in the area. So this shopkeeper wrote this letter for him, and then they mailed it up to Togus, and he was fully expecting to get a response in time to leave to take a train on Monday. Okay? So he waited for a response. He was excited about getting this response too. He was preparing to get the response by Monday. I mean, he fully expected to get this response. Okay, it's important because the response did not come. He did not get the letter, and so it was a huge letdown. But between writing the letter and not getting the response, Harry had done all kinds of little preparations. He had gone to a local barber that he had gone to before, and he sat in his chair and he told him all about his trip and how nervous, but kind of excited about going to Boston and about seeing his family. He was eager to go. He had come back to his apartment here. He was one of many tenants in this building, but he came back to his apartment. He was married. His wife was in there as well. And he had a trunk in there with all of his really important things in there, things that were really, really important to him. And one of those things was his suit. He went into his trunk, he got out his suit. He had a very nice suit. It was pressed, it was clean, it was very respectable. Harry was usually drunk morning, noon, and night, okay? But because he was expecting this letter, he did not drink that whole Monday. He wanted to be presentable when he was in public. Harry didn't drink just to drink. He wasn't drinking because he was an alcoholic. He was drinking because he was in pain. So he was going to see a pain doctor, and he was going to be in public. He wanted to have his best presentation. So he had the suit. He took the suit out. He laid it across... he laid it over a chair that was in front of a desk that was in front of a window, an exterior window, and that was basically the bedroom that they slept in. He and his wife slept in. Okay, so I need you to really hear me when I say he laid this suit over a chair at a desk in front of this window in his bedroom, or a room where they slept in. I don't know if it was all open concept in there or what, but their bed was definitely in that room. Okay, so the window was there, the table was right at the window, and the chair was there with the suit laid over the chair. He also had $24, which was his life savings. Okay, he put that in the suit pocket, in the pocket of the suit, laying on the chair at the desk at the window. He also had a handgun that was in the trunk that he never used. So he had planned on giving this handgun to his nephew, who he was going to visit when he visited his family. So he put that on the table at the window next to the suit with all of his money in it. Okay, so he had that all laid out on Monday, fully anticipating that he was going to get this news saying, yes, you can go to Boston. He did not get it. He didn't get the letter. The letter didn't come back, and by 4 o'clock he was pretty depressed about it, and he was in pain. So he started drinking. He drank the beer that he had made the day before. He didn't have enough left to really do the job as far as his pain was concerned, so he decided he had to go walking to the shops, I believe across the river. I'm not positive, but I think it was across the river, to pick up hops, molasses, and he was going to get some more tobacco product. So he went there at around 7 because he started drinking at 4, knew he was going to run out of beer, knew he needed to make some more, so he headed over there at 7. This is November 10th, okay? November 10th at 7 o'clock in Maine it's dark. And there's not really, I don't know about the lighting situation during that time in the city. I'm not sure. So there may have been a little bit of lighting at that time of the evening in the city, but if there wasn't, it was pitch dark. If there was probably a little bit of lighting, but it wasn't lighting his footsteps where he was going. So it was dark. If you were between lights, it was dark. If there was no lights, it was pitch dark. So he goes to the store, he picks up these items, he comes back, and on his way back he meets a gang of teenage boys. Remember, I was telling you this is not a good area of the city at that time. This is the oldest part of the city. It's more classy to live in the newer part of the city. So all the riffraff is here in this older part of the city. He's making his way back to this low-income tenement that he lives in, and he runs into these kids, and he's not in a good mood already, and they're looking for trouble. And so one thing leads to another, and they threaten to kill him. I don't know if they meant it. I don't know to what degree they meant it, but they did threaten to kill him. And by the time he was hustling away from him, now remember, he's partially paralyzed, so he's dragging half of his body the best he can, and he's hustling back to his tenement because he doesn't want any trouble. He's just a grumpy old man. And they're taunting. They're literally hollering out, "Drag him out! Drag him out! Drag him out!" And Harry's terrified. He gets back into his house, and now he's terrified, and he's agitated, and he's upset. And one of the things they were taunting him about was a local election that Harry felt really personal. It was really personal to him. I don't know what the election was about, but it was really personal to him, and it meant everything to him, and they knew it. It comes up later on in the story. I might not mention it again, but this was one of the things that he was agitated about. His wife happened to mention it to law enforcement after the shooting happened, that these boys were saying these things to him and making him really nervous. So he gets back to the fort. He goes into his apartment and he starts brewing beer late at night. It's like 9 o'clock at night. He starts brewing his beer, and apparently it's a process that's pretty loud. There's big barrels or something really heavy that he's dragging across the floor, and of course he's agitated, so he's yakking away. And one of the neighbors is a single mother with a young son. She doesn't really have anyone to advocate for her, so she has to advocate for her and her son herself, and she really doesn't want to do this, especially with Harry, but she has no choice. Her son is sick. So she goes and she knocks on the door late at night. It's late. It's like, by normal people's standards, it's middle of the night. So let's say it's like midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. I don't know how late it was. It was really, really late. She knocks on the door to Harry's place and she asks him, Mr. Burns, can you please keep it down because my son is sick and he really needs to sleep. He can't sleep because you're making too much noise. And Harry basically tells her off. That's his response, is not nice. So she doesn't know what to do. So she hoofs it over to the police station, and this is where the drama begins. She goes to the police station. She gets their attention, and 2 cops walk her back to the fort. Their names are Rufus R. Lishness and Arthur S. Baker. So they come to the door here. She lets them in to the interior door. And so you can go inside the fort, and then you go to the interior apartments from inside there. So you go in the exterior door into a hallway, and then there's an apartment to the left and an apartment to the right, as an example. Okay, so she goes into her apartment, and that's the last that she has to do with this issue. But they're familiar with Harry. Okay, so all the cops are familiar with Harry, so they're just like, Harry, open the door, and they're knocking, and he's like, who's there? And they say, Officer Lishness and Baker, and he hollers out, go away, Warren. That's what they said that he said. In his testimony in court, he said he thought that they were the kids. So he told them, they told him they wanted to come inside, and he didn't say, go away, Warren. He said, you shan't tonight, which doesn't sound anything like go away, Warren. But okay, so those are the 2 conflicting testimonies. One from him, and he's completely drunk, and one from them, and they're not drunk. So I don't know. But anyway, he doesn't let him in. So Baker's still knocking on the door, and Lishness is like, I got an idea. So he comes out the exterior door, and he goes to the very first window right next to that exterior door, and that window goes to the bedroom that Harry and his wife are now sleeping in. It's completely dark in there. He's done brewing his beer. Now remember, that window is right in front of that desk that has that gun on it, and it has that suit over the chair with the $24 in it, right? So Lishness is the smartest guy on the block right now. He's like, I got this. He's like, maybe the window's unlocked, and he hoists the window and it opens. So he shimmies the window open. Harry realizes that someone's coming in, and like I said earlier, there's no light. Nobody can see anything. Literally nobody can see anything. It's completely dark. So Lish just hoists open he shimmies open the window, and he hoists himself inside, and he's got his hands on both sides of the window, and he's pulling himself inside, and Harry starts freaking out because somebody's trying to crawl inside the window with the gun is right there, and his life savings is right there, right? So he gets out of bed and he goes over to the window and he pushes on the person's head to push them out. All he can see is the shape of a person. He pushes them out, and Lishness is locked in, so he can't be pushed out. He keeps pulling himself in. He can't be pushed out. He's really locked in there. And Harry panics. So he picks up the gun, he stumbles back, and he fires off a shot. And the next thing he knows, the person's not in the window anymore. So he goes and he closes the window. Harry thought that the person climbing through the window was one of those boys who threatened to kill him earlier. So he doesn't even think twice about it. He's like, I scared off the intruder. Well, Baker panics because he hears a gunshot, he runs outside, trips over Lishness on the ground. They can't see anything, and Lishness, he's like, Arthur asks him, have you been shot? Lishness tells him he thinks he has been shot, and he feels around his head and he realizes that there's like liquid, so obviously that's blood. So he's in a state of panic. He asks Lishness, can I help you up? He helps Lishness up, and he's like, I'll help you over to the police station. And unbelievably, Lishness says, no, don't worry about it. And he basically walks himself the whole way back to the police station, all on his own. He's been shot through the head. This blissful moment of, I got away with whatever, lasted not that long. Bad things started happening after that. Lishness started to go numb on one side of his face and then down his whole body, and pretty soon it was really awful. Daytime police officers, including Warren Bruce, the cop that Harry thought was at his door, he came. It was the middle of the night. It was like 3 a.m. He arrived, and also a Marshal Frank B. Farrington. He arrived also, and they were shocked at what they saw. They came right over to Fort Western. They wasted no time. They had lights. They had their badges. They didn't even knock. I don't think they knocked. They crashed in the interior door and laid their eyes right on Harry, and they said Harry was sitting on the edge of his bed with his gun in his hand, pointing it at him. And they had to rush over there and wrestle it away from him, and he was belligerent, and it was just quite the scene. Harry said, no, they had lanterns, and when I saw their badges, I stopped. That's what he said. Okay? They arrested him and immediately dragged him out to actually what they said was they arrested him, they subdued him, got the gun away, and he only had his pajama tops on, and they told him, Harry, get dressed, put your pants on and put some shoes on, we're going over to the jail. And Harry told them basically to pound sand, that he didn't have to do anything that they told him to do. So they were like, fine, you're still going to jail. So they carried him over half naked, apparently. They didn't carry him, they basically led him over there half dressed. I think he was half naked. His story was they wouldn't let him get dressed. These are all the different conflicting testimonies. In the meantime, the city doctor, one of the city doctors, had advised that Lishness needed to be put onto a horse cart and brought home immediately, because things were not going to get any better. And I don't know if he said that out loud, but he was fully expecting that Lishness would die, and he did die 12 hours later. He left behind a wife, all his kids. It was a really bad scene. So that whole incident took place there. Now Harry was tried, and he stuck to his story that it is kind of a reasonable story, that he was threatened earlier in the evening. He can't see anything. Someone's crawling through his window. By today's standards, you can't just go into someone's house. You can't just do that. He was defending his house. So he was found guilty of, I believe, manslaughter. Whatever the charge was, he got 7 to 14 years in Thomaston for this murder, which is really unfortunate, because he was really only in that state because he was trying to manage his pain. And I can't imagine that they're going to keep him, and they were going to keep him in that state in the prison when he was there for 7 to 14 years. So this is a tragedy all around. He didn't mean to kill this cop. He had no qualms with this guy at all. As a matter of fact, in his testimony, Harry Burns, made it. He tried to appeal to the judge or jury, whoever would listen to him, that he'd been arrested so many times. He'd spent so much time with all these police officers. He'd never given them any specific problem with them personally. He knew he was a drunk, but he also knew why he was doing this. So when he would get drunk and he would become belligerent and he would become a problem, when the police would tell him to go home, he would just go home. When the police would tell him, you've done enough, we're taking you to the station, he would just go to the station. When they would tell him, you need to spend the night, sleep it off, and pay a fine the next day, he would just go to the station, sleep it off, and pay the fine the next day. He didn't have anything personal against anybody. So this whole incident was a tragedy, above and beyond. So that's the story of the murder that took place at Fort Western in 1884. The most important part of the video, the bonus. I forgot to do it the first time around, so I had to come back. Is it haunted? Is Fort Western haunted? The short answer is yes. The long answer is come and investigate it for yourself, because who knows what you'll pull out of Fort Western for evidence. We pulled out some crazy evidence when we investigated here. Crazy. There have been other groups that have investigated it as well, and they've come to the conclusion that it also has paranormal activity. I think the most fantastical experience that we had here, we've had a few. I don't have time to explain all of them now. I wish I did, and I wish I could, but this video would be really super long. But the most impressive experience that we had here was during an investigation fundraiser, which involved Maine Ghost Hunters, our team, but also just people from the outside of our team who wanted to help with the fundraiser, but also wanted to have a paranormal, be a part of a paranormal investigation. So we did an investigation that lasted a few hours, and we hit the basement and the upper levels and all the areas that have known potential paranormal activity. We did all that as well, and then we ended in the storeroom in the front at the very end of the night. And we did that because it was closest to the road. The door, to the exterior went straight to the outside, so we knew that we'd have more infiltration from outside sounds in that area, and that's why we saved it until the latest part of the night, and then we left from that area. So we're there at the latest part of the night. Traffic on the outside here has died down as much as you can expect being in the middle of the city. So we expected certain sounds like cars, trucks, people walking by, all that sort of thing. What we did not expect, and what happened, was to hear the sound of horse hooves clomping around the building and up the street. That never even crossed my mind that could be a sound. So that we would experience. So we're sitting in this room, we hear the sound. At first I'm a little perturbed because I'm like, horse hooves? Okay. Well, I guess if you're gonna walk your horse in Augusta, in this area of Augusta, nobody does that. I guess you would do that in the middle of the night. Of course you would do it on the night that we're doing an investigation at Fort Western. I mean, of course, if you're a paranormal investigator, you try to prepare for almost every scenario you can think of, but I swear, things pop up and you're like, did not have this on my list of possibilities. And horse hooves clomping up the street was absolutely nowhere on that list. So I was a little annoyed. We waited. I looked around the room and it was clear that other people could hear it too. So I was like, okay, does anybody hear that sound? And they were like, yeah, of course we hear it. How could you not hear it? It's right outside the building. Okay, so it was horse hooves, and they waned a little bit, but they never stopped. So I went out the door. I was like, gee whiz, I mean, it's taking a long time for this horse to walk by. What are they doing out there? Are they just hanging out there so that we can know that they're hanging out there? We could just put it in our put it on our audio or in our video that we've seen the horse out there, and to just disregard it when we go over our evidence. So I went outside with another investigator to look around and put our eyes on the horse. I didn't see a horse, and I went around the building, I went up to the street, I didn't see anything. I was like, oh, it must be on the other side. They were on the other side. They came back and they were like, what'd you see? I'm like, I nothing. What did you see? And they were like, there's no horse over here. Okay. So we went back into the building and we were like, what did everybody hear? And we went and we asked every person, what did you hear? And they all heard horse. We all heard it. There was nothing out there. So that was probably the most impressive thing that we experienced during that investigation in particular. So do I think it's haunted? I think Fort Western, based on the experiences that we had inside, is definitely haunted inside that building. No doubt about it. Nothing bad. Just spirit activity. It's nothing bad. And do I think it's haunted outside the immediate walls? Absolutely, yes, I 100% do, based on that experience right there. So yeah, is it haunted? That's the long answer. Yes, it is haunted. Okay, so that's it. That's all I have for you. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. Share it with your friends and family. And if you'd like to add to the conversation, you want to have more deeper conversation, hit me up in the comments down below. I love talking, especially about Fort Western. Okay, everybody, thanks for joining us. Till next time.